Hello and welcome. My name is Tom,
And I'm Heather.
and you're sitting at the couples table.
The Couples Table is a live stream podcast here on this channel. Join us for better or worse. Oops, I said live stream podcast.
I was wondering if you were going to say that. Well, the thing that was getting me was I realized while the music was playing, the mics weren't muted, so you could hear like.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are we doing, Tom?
Oh, I don't know what I thought we were going to restart it, but we don't have to. It's actually
No,
better
we're just
if we
going.
don't.
We're
Okay.
going with it.
Okay. What we're doing right now is it's pre-recorded because we just wanted to have a talk.
We're trying a new thing.
Yeah.
We're trying a new thing.
It's just a different dynamic when you have to when you're focusing on a chat versus when you're having a discussion.
Yeah.
That can meander and take tangents and whatnot. So
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
Let's try a different format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically we've been having, it's one of those things, we've been having like the discussions of stuff, and it's popped up multiple times as we're talking, like this should be an episode, this should be that, this would be a good topic. So it's kind of that, it's like a little catch-up episode.
Just a little catch up.
We mustered the courage to
There
catch
it
up,
is.
and now you can relish in the results.
Yeah, this is, depending on how we like this format, I feel like this setup for how we're sitting right now is hard.
Yeah, well, it's very hard to be side by
I'm like
side
so
and have
close to you right now.
have
I
a
love being
discussion.
close to you, but this is like, hi.
I don't feel too close to you. I just like, I don't know where to look, you know.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And if you're listening to the audio, it's irrelevant. So
Yes.
there we go.
All right. So what are we talking about today, Tom?
I don't know. I thought it was like a bunch of thoughts that we've been having.
Yeah.
What the thing you were telling me right before you said, hey, we should record something, was to do with the idea that when people become fans of something, it's their enthusiasm that pulls them in. And then sometimes there's like a super fandom that takes over, which for some reasons tends to then go negative and can then be almost discouraging. I don't know. That was the last thing we talked about.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That was it. That was on my mind.
Well, I was thinking because I had to. Part of the reason why I wanted to record something is because I've kind of been off for the past 2 weeks because of PMDD. And I told Tom, I was like, I feel like I need a ride partner to help kick my butt back into the rhythm of things.
Just to knock the rust off a little bit.
Yeah. And then because Tom and I have been having so many conversations about
Creator life.
TM. And like, I don't know, the internet and all of it. It's just been interesting. I was going to say like being on this side of things, but I'm not sure like how much of a different side I've been on, but it's like, I don't know.
Well, okay. How about
I feel like a lot has changed. I feel like a lot of the space has changed since the last time we did an episode.
Yes. I agree for both of us, even though our
not even
channels
us, but just like.
Well, that's what I mean, though, because there's different spaces. So it's not uncommon for a space to change.
Yeah.
But for like a larger group to change or like things as a whole to change is pretty unusual.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's been, I don't know, I guess I've been having this thought of like, I feel like it's so much more accessible to be a full-time content creator, but I also feel like it is becoming more and more stressful that I don't know why anyone would like willingly sign up for this torture. And like, I don't think that's sponsors' fault, audience's fault. I honestly think that it's because everything is algorithm driven and everything is like, the things that get the most attention aren't necessarily the most like fulfilling or inspirational, or, you know, they're not like positive in the ways that I'm seeking to consume and create. And I feel like that for some reason it feels like it almost avalanched, because we always talked about this, like the trends chasing and the shorts chasing and all of these, you know, just
yeah,
like I can't, every single time YouTube emails me, it's like 1.5 billion something on shorts, like views on shorts. Go do shorts. But I'm like, I feel like if you can't define why you want views, then you're just chasing dopamine. Like, I feel like that's the default answer. And
Right.
unless you come up with something else, then it's something else. But if not, then if you cannot describe why it is that you need views, then to me it's just fill in the blank with dopamine.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. I know this is like, there's a lot of things floating in my head and it's not
Right.
really like making sense, but um I guess like you were kind of feeling like,
I have not been feeling great up until recently.
well, yeah, because you've been kind of feeling like, the space has changed and you kind of feel like everyone's doing it a certain way that doesn't align with how you were doing it. But
Yeah.
then also like I feel like the reason why that is happening is not the creator's fault. And I don't think it's the platform's fault either. I just feel like,
A thing that I've noticed, which is very interesting, and this might sound negative, but so be it, maybe, is one things I love about YouTube is everybody I've ever met who I know from YouTube is who they are, like who they are in person. Like you watch their channel or you watch their streams and you meet them in person. It's like, oh, it's the same person.
yeah,
And what I've been noticing lately is there are a number of people who, whether it's just a little bit or even maybe a little bit more, who I talk to one on one, and there's become more of a difference between the one on one that I see, which is kind of,
it's like the person and the persona.
yeah, there's like a bigger gap, more, not just a bigger gap, but more frequently. Like it seems like this is a more and more common thing that's happening. And I don't know. I don't know the cause for it. I know that sounds very critical, and it could be me misinterpreting things totally, but also like I don't know. At this point, I feel like I'm pretty good at if my gut is telling me something, there is a reason it's telling me
Right.
that. Like I am picking up on something. I might be wrong about the reason or communicating it poorly, but there's something there. And so for me, what it felt like was being at like going to this cool party or something and everybody's here having a good time and then suddenly realizing like wait, everybody left or the party has totally changed and I didn't realize it.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I think that's kind of where I'm coming from. Is I feel I'm starting. It's not I'm starting to feel that. I do feel that. There's just something like every time I go on some kind of platform, I'm just disappointed. Like in 2 minutes, I'm disappointed. And
so I
it's
get
like,
that.
it's not, before it was like, okay, in 2020, it was the doom scrolling. It was like, okay, I need to limit how much time I spend on the internet because it's just too crazy with like, you know, the COVID news and all
Yeah.
the
Oh, it's
repercussions of that.
awful.
Yeah, it's
It's all
just
bad.
so much. But that was like, there's a very definitive reason of like, okay, I need to be aware of what's happening, but I just have to protect myself in like drawing boundaries. This though, like I can't even pinpoint why I feel so drained after 2 minutes of being on social media. And before it was like, okay, I had Heather just create and that like I don't know, every all the community I'd built around that. Like not just the people that I've connected with, but the people that I'm following. And I know why I kind of got like burnt out on that. But even with like the Heather just play stuff, it's like, I mean, this is what I was telling you before we recorded, is like it was cool because everyone was talking about games, which I love. Let's
Right.
talk about games for hours and hours and hours. But I feel like when you have an algorithmically generated timeline for everybody, the things that just by default automatically rise to the top are are just the hot takes that no one asked for about hot takes that nobody asked for.
Right.
And it's like before, I think 2020, 2021, it was hot takes that no one asked for.
Yeah, it's gone one
2022,
step
yeah, it's
deeper.
now hot takes that no one asked for about hot takes that no one asked for. And it's
Right.
just everyone's just everything is a statement. Everyone's arguing about something. There's always something to criticize. Like we can't just like things, and it's disappointing, it's discouraging, and it makes, I don't know, it's just it sucks because like I understand why that works. You know, like
Yeah.
if talking about those things and making those kinds of statements get you a bunch of views, and
Negativity
obviously
sells
lean
way
into
more
it.
than
Like, you know, like I
positivity.
see why people do that, but um it's just draining. Like I'm kind of tired, and like you, I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but
So I'm trying to
like I
think.
don't even know what my point is.
No, no, no. You don't have to have a point, but
It's just a feeling.
yeah, what I feel is that all that is true, and where I've been approaching it, what I've been trying to do, because I was feeling just kind of low and bummed. It was getting to the point where I was feeling like I was doing something wrong. Like I was having the same feeling. Not that I ever really got in like trouble at previous jobs or anything, but if there was ever like a constructive feedback, or even like a boss calling you into their office and you think it's something bad, even if it's not, kind of that same feeling of like I did something wrong, except it's about this thing where like I'm the one in charge of it, and that sucked, and I really didn't like that feeling. And so the thing that I've been trying to focus on lately, which I have no idea if this is like good or not, it could be a horrible experience or experiment that ruins everything, but what it is to really, really double down on the how would I do things way, and do things that I think are fun. Like before this, I was showing you these goofy graphics I made for
Yeah.
a future live stream I want to do, which I spent hours on those. I don't even know when the live stream is going to be. It's I put more time into that than like some stuff for regular video, because it was what I wanted to do and
Yeah,
it was
because it
fun.
was fun. Yeah.
And trying to do different styles and different designs, and I think it will make for a really fun stream that is going to be a little different than other streams, just by nature of kind of being created in a vacuum in a way. And like I've been trying to embrace that more, which I hope is a really good thing. It's
Yeah.
fun for me. So I guess like most importantly, it makes things fun for me to decide I want to make this video this way. I'm going to do this. I want to make a video about this. I'm going to do it this way. And, I don't know if anyone watching would even notice a difference, but me making it, there's a huge difference in the
Right.
approach to things. And I think that's been really helpful, because I don't, it's almost like when I have the feeling of, wow, this, whatever, Twitter is a nightmare right now, I'll just close that out and open up Photoshop and work on some graphics. Like I've sort of been, every time I have that feeling of like, this is making me feel bad, I will just close it and then make something for my own stuff, or like, update this thing on my website. Like I'll just spend the time I would spend feeling bad about this or whatever, and just make
Work
something
on
that I
your
think is
thing.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I've been trying, there's an episode, I don't even know how to approach this, so it's probably not going to be the one I record this week, but I have an idea for a podcast episode for this season of my podcast, that's something to do with like, can a tech channel be art? Because there's that line of like, you're making a product review or a tutorial or something, but could that be artistic? Could that be creative? And I think the easy answer is yes, but the harder answer is how, and what is the difference between that versus like somebody wants to make a short film or something, which is like clearly an art thing, or a music video or whatever. And I'm trying to like just explore that a little bit, which I think is really fun, and I think, at least for me, is something, it's different for me, and I think it makes the stuff a little bit different too. Um, which then hopefully, like, the goal is to make something that people enjoy. So if I'm getting annoyed by all the negative stuff I'm seeing, maybe I can make something that isn't negative,
Right.
and then people will not have, they'll get to have that instead of something negative. And maybe, which is like, would be almost like the ultimate thing, is somebody would see that and get an
And want to make
idea
their own
for
thing.
like, oh, I could do my own thing this way. Not that it's the same, but the idea of, oh yeah, I
You
could.
got inspired somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now they're making their own positive thing instead of doom scrolling. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's what I've been like thinking about
Yeah.
the past several weeks.
I like that.
It's been fun, and it's been interesting too, because I was talking to you earlier. I've been really into aviation YouTube.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about, different genres and stuff, because it's like, these issues aren't there in that one. They have their own drama and things, but like it's very interesting. But I've been watching a lot of aviation channels, And today I was watching or listening to, it was a panel from a big, in Oshkosh, there's a big like fly-in air show kind of thing, convention every year. It's huge, like tens of thousands of people there, thousands of planes fly in. And there was a big panel with like a lot of the aviation YouTubers, like the more well-known ones, which wasn't even all of them. And there must have been 25 or 30 people on the panel. It was mainly just a Q&A panel. So between them, I mean, millions of subscribers between them, hundreds of millions of views between them. It was a 45-minute discussion. I don't think anyone on the panel was under 30 or was over 30. Yeah. No, under 30. Under 30. I don't know math. Everyone was a little older. Over 30.
When you told me that, you said under 30. You said that everyone was young. And I was like, yeah, interesting.
Sorry, yeah, no. No one on the panel was
under 30. They were all 30 and up.
30 and up.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because a lot of the questions that people asked were about YouTube and like, how do you start a YouTube channel? When do you do this and other thing? But not once in the 45-minute thing with all of these people, millions of subscribers between them, nobody mentioned Mr. Beast. One person mentioned YouTube Shorts and TikTok, I think, and it was really just the idea of like
multi-purpose.
No, it was like you can't transfer your audience. If you have a YouTube audience, you're not going to pull them to TikTok, vice versa. And if you have an audience that likes you for long form, they're like, I make a 23 to 30 minute video every week. None of the people who watch that are going to want to watch a 20-second thing. Like, it's not like, it was just immediately like, no, not my thing for them. And it was so interesting because that is the opposite. By all measures, they're very successful, and a lot of them have gotten not just sponsored videos, but the sponsorship includes like upgrading parts of your plane and stuff, which is like $100,000 to do. So big, like successful full-time channels, kind of bucking the trends. So we do long form content. Most of it's filmed with GoPros and action cameras. There's a couple people who have like higher end cameras, but by the nature of like flying a plane, you can't be filming. They're like, we set up our camera, we plan it all at home, set up the camera, hit record, and then forget the cameras are there until we're done flying because safety. So you're like,
very different.
It's very different, and it works. And it's been fascinating to me because it's just like, it's such a different approach to the same thing. And the same thing goes with like when I hear all the complaints about, I make a video about GoPros and people tell me how terrible GoPros are, and then I'm like, well, here's a whole different use case that like this person's not considering. New iPads just came out and people are just like poo-pooing all over them. Like, oh, why does this one need to exist and this model's not there? And I'm like, well, here's a giant community because iPads are FAA approved to be in planes, and you can use the GPS and the logging and all the, all the info that's on them. But you don't have a lot of room in a plane. So getting something that's like, it just made me realize that so much of at least what I have been seeing is so from one perspective. And these things where it's like, dude, Apple doesn't need the iPad Air. This is stupid. Why does this even exist? It's like, oh, actually, like I want to get one because I need a cellular iPad and it seems to be the perfect size and it needs to fit like in this very small area and fit like.
You know what I think it is? I think like this reminds me of like what. Because, we're 1985. So we are that micro generation that grew up with the internet. And I think one of the coolest parts of the internet was that, like, it was new. You had to figure it out. Yes. No one knew why this feature was here. And a
lot of it was what if I ...
Yeah. And now I think it's not what if I ... It's like, this is how it's been done. So this is how we're gonna do it, and it doesn't matter like to what end.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so much less about conversation and dialogue and more about like transaction. Whereas like, I think about like how we met. It's like it doesn't, and I always feel weird bringing up us as an example, but I do feel like because it's just so one in a million.
But it's an example of like genuine human interaction.
Yes,
based around
through the internet, where we would have never met otherwise. We had zero mutual friends. Like
there was no overlap
way.
of circle.
Yeah, there's no way despite how much we have in common, there's just no way we would have crossed paths. And like, I feel like that frontier feeling of like, this is the internet, I'm entering a chat room, everyone, like, it's like discovering a new forum of all these people that like your thing, and it's like so exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, they get it. But instead of like welcoming, what do you think, how do I think, let's evolve the thoughts and stuff, now it's just like, it's like everyone's just, the default emotion, I feel like, is defensiveness. And it's like, it goes back to that, like, where you're already apologizing, giving disclaimers for without even like saying anything, like you're already trying to, and I'm curious, like, how that is affecting how people communicate, because I feel like, I don't know, it just, I know this is like, I'm having trouble like explaining how I'm thinking, but I don't know.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like,
I lost it.
Your phone is right there. I remember specifically iPods are the example, but to make it slightly more modern, I'll use the iPhone as an example. 2007, the first one came out. It didn't have an app store. It couldn't take video. It had one page of installed default apps, and that's it. That was the first smartphone. And obviously it was amazing and people loved it. And then the very next year was like, now there's an app store. Now you can do video. Now you can have 2 pages of apps or whatever. And the next year, like every year was this big, like, huge leap forward. Like, the reason I think of the iPod is like, it's 1,000 songs in your pocket, and it was this little thing with an old Game Boy LED screen, and that's it. And then suddenly it was like, now it, by adding 3 more gigabytes, we've like quadrupled the storage capacity or the song capacity of it. And now there's a color screen. Now it can do like every year was just like, oh my God, things are insane. And then it got to a point, like phones, for example, tell me the actual difference between an iPhone 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, but now it's like the reaction is just like, oh, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do
right.
this.
So
like,
that's what
not
I'm saying.
Good enough. Yeah.
My point. That's exactly my point. Is
the leap. There's no leaping anymore. So
right. People
like,
got accustomed to the leaping because every year it's like something new is going to happen. Some big thing is going to happen. This new platform is discussed. People are figuring out new ways to use these platforms, and once things mature, that kind of stops and everything becomes like iterative versus like revolutionary.
Right.
And so what that means on platforms is everything becomes optimized for views and for algorithms. And then people just start adapting to that. And
I think the thing that's so fascinating about the aviation YouTube is that it sounds like it, in the grand scheme of things, it's late to the game. I feel like it's a space that now has a established panel of content creators, but for whatever reason, maybe there weren't that many aviation YouTube creators because you just didn't know. Like, they're either over 30 or like not on TikTok or not making YouTube videos. And then
what's funny is a lot of them have been doing it for so long, for 7, 8, 15 years. Like, you can go to their channels and it's like, video. The video is literally just GoPro 1 like shaking like crazy, looks like it's having a seizure in the back of the plane because there's no stabilization. It's like landing at an airport, uploaded 13 years ago or something. And then it evolved and kind of became something. But it's almost like it evolved separately from the niches that I'm interested in, which is probably true for other things, like, I don't know, beauty or fashion or whatever. Like, I think when niches are so far apart, they grow and evolve separately. And it's been interesting to sort of see that. But it's also been interesting to see how they approach it. This was the thing I was going to say earlier when I was talking about the creativity part of it. Because you and I recorded an episode for my podcast where it was about authority versus enthusiast. And there's a lot of baggage that immediately comes with telling someone how to do something.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you how to use this microphone. Automatically, like, who are you to be telling me? You don't know what you're talking about. Versus like things where I think people learn a lot from is just watching someone do something. Like, if you were to tell me, I'm going to show you how to use Final Cut Pro, it would be different than me sitting next to you while I watch you edit a video. And if I sit next to you, watch you edit a video, I would learn a lot because I would see how you're doing it and what you're deciding to do and why you're doing it. I would bet you, like literally, I would learn something right now if I watched you edit in Final Cut Pro, and you would have to tell me, I'm going to teach you how to do this.
Right.
And so what I've been noticing in the aviation channels that are some of my favorite and that are some of the most successful, at least in terms of numbers, are ones that like they focus on a story. I'm using quotes like broadly because that's such a cliche, like story is king. And I don't mean like the story will literally be like, we're going to fly to eat lunch, or we need to take the plane really far away, so we're going to have to stop at 2 airports along the way, and that's going to be a
versus here's how you do this.
But right, versus so for example, the one I'm thinking of, I watched a video where it was like summer picnic was like the story, and basically like, oh no, it was formation flying. There was 2 groups of people in Cessna. This one big group of people, they had 2 planes, and they had set it up so they could fly in formation, take off together, fly in formation. They were in Indiana, and they were going to go to a grass runway, land, and they had brought a pizza with them. So the story was, we're going to go eat this pizza because it was like the first nice day of summer or something. And they were literally trying to like, can we fly in formation together, go where we need to go, and get there while the pizza's still warm. That was
wow.
it. But it wasn't set up like a Mr. Beast video. It was a very
Right.
calm kind of thing. So that in and of itself sounds charming, but not necessarily like super entertaining. But it's made in a way that's interesting. And along the way, without them telling me about it, I learned that one of the planes was bigger and smaller. So if the bigger plane put its flaps down when it takes off, it could take off in the same distance as the small plane, so they could take off together, where normally they would take off at different times. I learned that when one plane needs to cross over to the other, it needs to lower its altitude so it doesn't get caught in the wake turbulence from the other plane. I learned when you land on a grass runway, it's very important to like keep the nose wheel up as much as possible because of all the bumps and the rough stuff. Like, I ended up learning a ton that wasn't what the video set out to do. And that's how like all those are is like, here's the video. It's about this simple thing. We're not trying to teach you anything. We're not promising you anything. You're going to see people enjoying flying and eating lunch. But along the way, I actually learned a ton. And to me, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to figure out how I can like do a version of that where it is so much more of the enthusiast, like, I'm going to do a thing.
Right. And it's
I'm
like,
I'm going to show,
yeah.
I'm going to let you watch me do a thing, or take you along as I do a thing, and you'll probably pick up something along the way. But I'm not going to sit there and say the best way to do
this is how
XYZ.
you do this. Yeah.
And I think that like, I don't know. I think that's a potential solution to that feeling of like, that feeling of negativity, that feeling of criticism, that feeling of, it's hard because it's also like that stuff just performs well. Like if you make a video of my favorite microphone,
the worst.
Yeah, it's not going to do well. One of my best performing videos of the year is called "Is the Blue Yeti Really That Bad?" Which is ironically about how it's not. That's why I was like, well, it is a question, so I'm not saying the Blue Yeti is that bad.
Yeah.
I asked the question, is the Blue Yeti really that bad? And of course I know people are going to have opinions and they're going to answer that question. But that's about as negative as I can go. But if you say like, some of the, like, things have gotten aggressive almost to the point.
Oh my gosh. Like, I can't even.
It's insane. And
like, I feel like, this conversation that we just had, like this, like what you just described about the aviation thing is like such a cool tidbit, like a great creator to creator, very helpful. I see how I can, I can take this little piece and try to incorporate it into my creative process. Yeah. And I feel like it would, I feel like there's something to go off of there, and it has nothing to do with like, oh, this is this is the guaranteed way to get more views.
Yeah, I have no idea about that. It's not a strat. It's a creative process thing.
I feel like it's that conversation that like doesn't matter anymore. It's like everyone's just talking about, and I also know that, my experience of the internet is not everyone's experience of the internet, of course. Like, who knows? But I don't know. My impression right now is that it's like I just have this like sinking feeling of dread because I've been telling Tom this a lot, that there's a bubble popping.
Right.
We've talked about this.
The way I described it was, which maybe this has changed. I described it, if you've ever seen slow motion video of a water balloon being popped, like someone picks it with a needle, the plastic of the balloon immediately disappears like in one frame.
But there's one
But the
frame,
water is still
yeah,
like
in the
here.
shape of the water
It's
balloon.
like when Wile E. Coyote runs over the edge of the cliff and is like running in the air before he looks down and then he falls.
Yeah.
And it felt like when you were describing that,
feel
it was that. Like, you're like, I think there's a bubble pop, and it felt like you were the balloon. Like, something happened, but it hadn't yet, like...
And I don't know if it has popped, or we're still like in stasis, or we're falling and we just don't feel it. You know, it's like the frogs or whatever. Like,
Right.
I feel like there's some kind of shift that's happening.
There is. One thing, like, I it's scary, and it's frustrating and scary, and I don't like it. But one thing about it, though, we've talked about this a lot, is like some of the really long time, super objectively successful creators like Marquez Brownlee, iJustine, like the people who've been doing it since pre-2010, they've had to, it's been interesting how, I've said this many times, they're still themselves. If you watch Marquez Brownlee video from this week and you go back and watch an old one, it's clearly the same guy. His like skills, techniques, access to stuff is improved, but it's just clearly the same person. But along the way, in the, however many years is between those videos, he has had to adapt and evolve multiple times because he's been doing it for so long. And I've always said, like, it's fascinating to me how they can do that, because so many people are I do this one thing, I do it really well, and then it's not interesting, it falls out of favor and it disappears. So how does somebody stay true to themselves yet adapt and evolve to continuously stay relevant? And part of me feels like, after me doing this for 5 years, you doing it for 6, this is maybe our first version of that, where it's like there is a big shift, and now it is a moment to adapt if you want to keep going.
Right.
But there's no guidebook for what that is.
It's funny. Well, yeah, that's the thing. This is another thing, is that there's never been a guidebook, and everyone tries to pretend that there is, like there's some secret, and it's like, the secret is that there's no secret.
Which is why I think my impulse is to go like, okay, well, what do I think would be fun and positive and fulfilling?
Yeah, because
and I'm just gonna do that
to
and
the
hope
beginning
that it
of
pays
time.
off.
Yeah, to the beginning of time. That's the thing that, like, how do you get someone to be interested in something else? Just do that. Like that's.
Yeah, you can't wait. It's like chasing a trend. By the time you've been like, there's this Harlem Shake going around, we should make a video. It's like, that trend is over. Like, if you've already recognized it, now you're trying to chase it, it's past.
That, and also you're just defined by that. So like, you can't do anything else. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know why it bothers me. Like, it's whatever, just make my own videos. Who cares? But it's also like, this is a space that I, advocate for so long, that I love and I like being a part of. And it's just, it's like, I don't know. It's weird to see it turning into something that.
So the way that I feel is, there's been a reoccurring theme with you and I many times over the years, where like, we want something that doesn't exist, so let's make it.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I just had a thought, and then I don't want to interrupt you.
You can have your thought.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll go after.
Sure. Just don't forget your thought.
Okay.
It's everything from like, that's why the Just Create More community is there. There have been so many times where it's like, I wish there were a local meetup thing where we can talk about.
Yeah, so we try to make it
in person. And it got to a point where we were recognizing, like, I want to be a part of something. There's certain things where it's like, I want this, I want to be a part of it, but I don't want to be the one that has to make it. Like, I know I'm tired in a lot of ways of like, I don't want to be the person that has to put the thing together. Like, I want to be the person who gets to show up to the thing and like enjoy it. And I don't want to have to build it. The biggest exception to that, for me at least, is my YouTube channel, because I feel like that's the best opportunity. It's almost the opposite, where the idea of getting to be the thing that I want to be make the thing that I want to be is exciting. And I think that in a situation where there are people who are searching for something or trying to figure out how to navigate a transition, or things are going down a road that you don't want to go down, I think it's a really good time to actually embrace that. It's like with your channel, for example, there's lots of stuff in the gaming space that's weird or negative or whatever. But I think you have been, and you could continue to be, a really refreshing reprieve from that.
Yeah.
And people don't really know that exists.
It's such a weird thing to give me hope, though. Like, because it's like, that's the light, is that like you stand out because you're being yourself, because everyone else is trying to chase.
But I think it's everyone else is not, and this everyone else is a very loose term of everyone.
Yeah, like who are we talking about?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Many people or many creators or whatever, they don't know. They just see what they see. The same reason everyone had a Gorilla Pod on a camera back in 2016. It's what you see, it's what you get.
It's like that person who messaged me.
Right.
Like, I don't want to. I feel bad. Okay, so
Heather just got an interesting message from somebody. The way I'll describe it as, it was a person who is a creator who, I guess the way to put it would be, clearly the thing that they're making, it doesn't seem to be the thing that, like, it's almost like they're making what they think they should be making.
Yes.
And it was kind of insane. But under it, the person actually had a lot. When we broke it down, we're like, they're doing this,
they have
this,
an
this,
incredible
this,
skill set.
Yeah,
I'm like,
they're really talented. This is a lot of work.
This is crazy.
And I think that's the perfect example.
It's like, if you look at the trending page and you just study the top 10 videos of the trending page and incorporate every single thing that you see, like, that's the video they made.
Yeah. It's almost like an AI wrote this script and edited it for
was
you.
Total insanity.
Yeah. It really
it was total insanity.
It really was. I'm just thinking of specific moments now, and I'm not laughing at the video, but it's like,
yeah, I don't want to, I'm not trying to put that.
I'm not laughing
down.
at that, but I'm laughing at the absolute absurdity of, like, I know why you did this, but if you step back as a person and just look at this,
like, I know, yeah, like, I know that is what is getting clicks, right? Like, that's what's getting views, but, like, what is the point of this? Like, what is the takeaway? Right. Like, I don't know.
That's what, like, Peter Lindgren, I showed you a thing yesterday. He has been doing a 3-week experiment with Reels. And this was actually real interesting, because he's been making these little Reels, basically about his camera gear, and they're really cool. Really cool. It's like he's just been doing all these really simple, like, in-camera hard cut, final cut transitions to make stuff look really neat. Like, this camera turns into this other camera. He smashes a lens down into his desk. Really simple, 10-second things that would be perfect for Reels. And he's been doing 2 to 3 of them a day for 3 weeks. And his YouTube channel, his Instagram account exploded. And he has all the data, like, the account was dead. Like, nobody was finding it, interacting with it, nothing. It's just such a perfect line of, like, every time he did more, it brought in more and was promoted more and became more and more and more, and the thing grew more and more. And at the end of it, his conclusion was, I hate this and I'm going to stop, and he deleted Instagram off his phone.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, not his account, but, like, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to use this as email on my desktop is basically his thing, because he's like, yeah, my theory was right, that if I do this, it's going to grow my account. I don't want to do that, though. So that is what I need to do to grow this account, but I'm not interested in doing that to grow this account, so I'm not going to anymore. And I think that's a really important thing, is, like, this will get you engagement, this will get you views, this will do all that, sure. But, like, do you...
In service to what,
Yeah,
though?
do you even, like, at that point, do you want that? Like, does it matter? And I don't... And that's everybody's question to answer on their own, but it's,
Right. Yeah. But for me, the way I answer that is, if I cannot succinctly define why I am doing this, then it's just dopamine. And I can't get it from that. Like, I refuse. I don't want it. I don't want to get it from that.
That's probably a good thing to recognize.
And that's just for me, like, I'm not going to judge anybody else, whatever, But the thing I was going to tell you was, I know this would never happen, but I listened to the most recent episode of Criminal, my favorite podcast, which it's fantastic, by the way. It's called Ghost World, and it's about a BBC show that I think was done in like 1992, like early 90s.
Wow, it's way early.
Yeah. So before the documentary style fiction, like before Blair Witch.
Before Blair Witch reality TV, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I feel like they must have been the first ones to do it, to do some kind of like, this is reality, but it's all staged.
Okay.
And then it's on BBC, so it's like, this is for sure reality, right? So it's fascinating, and they look at other cases where both on TV and radio, like they did a piece on Kevin and Bean, who they did something similar in the early 90s, and everyone thinks, like, everyone who's working on it is like, this is so obviously fake, like, that's the joke. But then when you're the consumer, you're like, you know, I mean, so this is sad, okay? But someone's kid committed suicide because they were so scared of what they had seen.
A ghost?
Yeah, like they were mentally disabled and didn't understand and
thought it was real. Yeah,
and thought it was real. It was so scared, and so like it's just interesting because what I took away from that was like it's like I can see this with the internet, right? Like that happened in TV and radio, and those were the learning experiences of like, we have this power and it has this influence, and regardless of what your intention is, this is how people receive it and the perception and the consequences of that. But there's a governing board,
right?
There's an FCC, there's journalists, there's whatever, there's some kind of like,
regulatory,
there's some kind of that, right? But I feel like the internet and everything I love about it has been able to run amok, unchecked for so long that like, I feel like it's one of those, I think this was in The Expanse, where you do that like tit for tat or whatever it's called, where if you can run like a computer simulation, and eventually every possibility makes it so that like evil wins or something. Like if you have good versus bad, and like, I can't remember what the thing is. I'm sure one person knows what I'm talking about. But like, I feel like if you introduce the internet and just like in every possible case scenario, every timeline of the earth, like it all ends up just going to the fan. Because I feel like there's just, if you allow it to run like unchecked, there's no governing body. I feel like it's already at the point where it's out of everyone's hands. So like the platforms are, I mean, they're all like trying to feel like they have control by telling the creators to focus on shorts, and then like, here's monetization tools. Look, we're totally thinking of you. It's like, well, are you though? Like, when Twitch or whatever is taking 80% of your cut, and like, it's crazy because there is absolutely no way where there can be a governing body, because it's a global thing. Like it's
I wouldn't want that. To me, I mean, I don't know.
Well, here's what I would want. Like if I had it my way, what I would want to do, and this is one of those things like, okay, it doesn't exist, I wish I could start it, but I just don't want to be the person to carry it out, is like, I wish there was some kind of I've said this before, like a chamber or a membership or some kind of seal, like seed certified or whatever. So, okay, this building meets these regulations. It does this, it saves this amount of energy. It's installed all these like things to make it like as energy efficient as possible. So bam, you got the seal. Like, I'm not trying to regulate your content, but by abiding to these guidelines, you also like, you take pride in integrity and the responsibility of having an audience and whatever your niche
it's almost like a different kind of check mark.
Yeah, because right now, like, I think that the only governing that is happening is self-governing, right? The community governs itself, but that is just such a stupid way to do it, because now it's just rage clicks. Like, well, it's just drama channels commenting, and now you know what the self-policing has led to? reacts. Like, it's just literally people just taking someone's video 100% start to finish and then watching it. And then somebody else watching them watch it. Like, it's just
react to the react.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't like that's the extent of the content that is being churned out right now. I'd be curious. I'd love to see, I wish YouTube, Instagram, and all these platforms would every month put out like a here's what was uploaded the most. And I just it's all to me right now it just seems like so much content that's like, how much effort did you even put into this? Like, whatever. I don't know. Who am I to judge? But it just feels weird. I think that comes down
to like, that's where I would blame an algorithm, because that's where there is no, I don't know. I think of like some of the high level educational YouTube channels that are out there. And when they make a video about something or a documentary about something and it's done really well, their description is just filled with sources, or they will link to like a Google Doc that has all kinds of sources and updates and whatever. And it's like, you don't have to agree with it or whatever, but any person can go to that and then see where their information is coming from, how they came to these conclusions.
So like for my little membership thing, like what I would wish is that, okay, if at any point in your creative process you are citing some kind of fact or whatever, like cite the source in your video description, you agree to do that, right. and like I feel like it would mean a lot. Like I wish YouTube would do something like that, like I would even pay. Like I would pay to show, hey, I have stake in this.
Or go through like a training or something.
Like exactly. Like let me take pride in what I'm doing, and like I care about it, and I have a vested interest, but I also like I care about my community. It's not just.
The cool thing about that would actually be, I love this idea, honestly, because the cool thing about it would be that it shouldn't be numbers based. So,
right, like, exactly. Because someone who's just starting a channel from scratch could also be able to, they could abide by the same guidelines and start like that from scratch. And then it's like,
yes, your 10 subscriber channel could have the seal or whatever next to it, because you went through everything, you agreed to everything, and you understand it.
And like, there's a sense of responsibility. It's the same thing. Like, okay, so I think another reason why I started thinking about this is because freaking, I'm just going to throw his name out there. His name is Asmongold. He is, I got introduced to him because he's used to be one of the biggest Final Fantasy 14 creators, is now just a personality channel. At this point, kind of like PewDiePie started out with gaming. Okay. Asmongold is so big. He can talk. He's just...
People listen no matter what.
Talk about whatever. He's on Twitch, and everything on YouTube is just clips. So this guy streams all day talking about everything. So he's just a personality channel at this point. He tweeted something freaking 3 days ago that just pissed me off to high heavens.
He told me that, but I didn't ask you what it was. And
so did you find it?
I found something, but I don't know if this was it. And I wasn't going to ask you because I didn't want to bring up the bad feeling.
Okay, so the thing that pissed me off was let me pull it up, because I really don't want to misquote. And what if I was just on PMDD?
Don't misquote in your whole thing about like
citing
sources. And you just do some
hearsay.
It'd be interesting too for that licensing certification, whatever. If there was some way, like, I guess when you upload a video, it gets reviewed for monetization. It could be the same thing, like reviewed for, I don't know, like. You have to keep your thing. This was the one I saw.
Should people under 18 be able to make accounts on social media websites? Weighing the positives versus negatives, I can't see how access to social media for underage people is a net positive. Between the risk of abuse, psychological damage, and bullying, I don't think it's worth it.
Okay.
This is an example of like a hot take that nobody asked for. And I love the discourse. Like, I can talk about this all day, right? But you making this statement and knowing that people are going to read it and just automatically agree with you because of who you are makes it so that we're not really having a dialogue here, right? This is also the same person who is like, this is also the same person who did a whole live stream about how I can't believe Twitter allows this to happen on their platform. And it was a girl who was basically naked, like literally just covering the itty bitties, and like doing very suggestive stuff. That's okay, but then there's someone over here who does something very minor and is banned off the platform. Right. And he showed the stream and then used that for his thumbnail. Like, you're literally just doing the same thing. I forgot why I even brought this up.
Well, I mean, I don't remember. Because I was talking about the check mark and the verification in a small channel. It's not based on numbers of followers. Because, excuse me, when somebody does have a verified check mark next to their name, all of that should mean is that this person is verified to be the person that they say they are. That's literally it. Like, especially as oftentimes it's larger accounts, because when someone's larger, they'll potentially have more people imitating them. And so the verification is like, no, this is the real person. Like, well, that's really all it means. Nothing to do with credibility, but it has become a credibility badge.
Right.
And that's why, and it's the number of times I get taken aback by it when I see someone share something, usually criticizing it, but it'll be some with a verified checkmark saying some absolutely absurd, like horrible, I don't know, transphobic thing, or just super ignorant thing, or whatever. And you know, obviously they're being criticized. That's why it's even popping up in my thing at all. But realizing like, oh yeah, that checkmark doesn't mean anything. It just means, yeah, that you are that person who's saying this horrible thing, versus like you were saying, a seal or something that sort of, I like that idea, because not everyone has to do it. If you don't want to do that, or you don't think you need to, or whatever, you still business as usual.
Yeah.
But if you want to sort of say like, no, I'm holding myself to these standards, and so
exactly,
people can,
you are holding yourself, you agree to these, like, to this standard.
It's almost
right?
like going to I don't know, like a peer-reviewed paper versus a Wikipedia article. Like, you know, it's almost like that kind of a difference. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with the Wikipedia article,
right.
But for people who care about, you know, understanding like where that even came from, here's a really reliable source that has been like vetted. And that, I kind of love that idea.
Yeah. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know, I know every platform. See, this is why it would never work, because
the logistics behind it, and then the politics that would get involved in the.
But like, you know, because YouTube has had a YouTube certified program, but that's just like how well you know their platform,
right?
And it has nothing to do with what you create. And then there's of course the verified, but
there would need to be like an independent third party committee or board or something.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how, like a doctor is, you know.
Sorry. Okay. Oh, thank God I came back to this. I was like, why did I bring up that Asmongold thing? Because I don't want to just make it seem like I'm complaining about his stuff. The reason why I brought it up was like, oh shit, I'm gonna lose it again. Sorry.
You brought it up like a doctor.
I'm gonna pause. We're gonna pause. Okay, I remembered. Okay, so, the reason why that stance pissed me off is because I feel that abstinence is not the answer. And we've talked about this with social media, like the first day we met, right? It's like, oh, you youngins, get off your phone or whatever. And I feel like that particular take, I'm sure Asman is a nice guy or whatever, nothing against him, but I feel that like just remove it because we don't understand it and whatever is not the way to go about it. Whereas if what I feel like is always better is education. Yes, it's education. It's like learning how to protect yourself and others using this tool, a tool that can be used for bad or good. Understand how it can be used, you know, like.
Yeah, because if you just give that to them, so someone turns 18, now they have access to all this stuff suddenly.
Well, that and like how many people, I mean, you're a freaking former high school teacher. I can talk about how much good the internet has done for young people. Like I used to be, half my career was youth advocacy and youth empowerment. I mean, volunteering, you know, feeling like you're not the only gay person at your school because there's other, you know, I think it was Criminal I was listening to. This one lesbian would just call this gay bar every night just to hear other gay people existing and having fun. Just so that they would leave the phone off the hook just so they can hear the atmosphere of gay people having fun. That's how it was like decades ago. Now you can go on Instagram and be like, Pride Day. Everyone can announce the whatever. There's so many like, you know, if you have a symptom you can't tell your parents. You can go to, I know we shouldn't all be Dr. Google or whatever, but like there's so many good things that I feel like happens with social media. And maybe that's because I had the privilege of working with teens in the context of them using it positively.
Right.
I don't have teens of my own. I'm sure if we had kids or whatever, like I would see a different side of it where,
well, that's the education component.
Yeah,
though.
they're on the phone more than they are looking at me, whatever.
That's the thing with my students that would always happen is like, because, obviously like online bullying, social media bullying is a very real thing. And it's always interesting to me to be like, okay, I don't know, whatever Snapchatstagram, whatever app they were using that where it's like, oh, this person's like bullying me on there. I'm like, why are you guys even connected on there? Like, why are you following them? Why did you bring your bully into your bedroom? And then you're like, now they're like treating me like, don't let them into that space, but they don't think
understand exactly. And so that was my whole point is like, I feel like not only agreeing to set of standards, but also the education component of like what these tools even mean, the impact of it. And like, if there were some kind of program that you had to go through, we can talk about all these like kind of interesting. It's kind of like when you go to law school or, become a doctor, they study these like significant cases that have happened in history so that the precedent has been set. Right. It's obviously not, everything is going to be case by case, but at least there's like these defining moments that have kind of shifted culture. And like if we're all agreeing to these set of standards of like, this is what we're trying, this is the spirit of what we're trying to do, then like that should be enough to go on versus like, it's weird how I'm also a YouTube creator and so is that person who is just re-uploading someone else's content.
Boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, does that mean you're a 7th grader you went to a dance together, or does that mean you're 45 years old and you've been together for 15 years? Like
it's hard because it's like I want to, this is something like I take so much pride in, and it's hard. It feels like it's just getting away from me and it's like discouraging, but I want to have the same pride about it, and I wish this is the ADHD in me. I wish I didn't care. Who cares? Heather, go make your videos. Like, why are you even thinking about this?
But
dude?
I think that's the middle, like, it's
but
like
wouldn't
trying
that be
to
cool
contain
though?
the ocean. Yes, it's like trying to contain the ocean at a certain, like it's too big.
It's too big. Whatever. It's gone. Yeah, like I feel like the dam broke, whatever. But I still, if I had it my way, like if I won the lottery, I would totally try to build some kind of, not necessarily a governing body, like that wouldn't be I'm not trying to limit free speech or anything like that, but it's more of like, there is a responsibility that I feel like no one even considers when they create a channel. It's not until you get your first like video that pops off beyond the people that you're already connected to that you realize, oh crap, like I'm getting negative comments, I'm getting questions, I'm getting like, these people that I don't know. Now I'm monetized. Like, but so what, right? Like, what's the bigger picture? And like, it kind of reminds me of like little, like, I don't know, maybe you would know what they're called, like little podcast hubs, like podcast networks where like, we've got shows about true crime and news and commentary and whatever. It's all different kinds of podcasts, but there's a set of standards that they all
it's
kind
like
of
an NPR show. So,
sure.
Like,
yeah.
NPR has a lot of different shows. No, Criminal's not NPR. But NPR has a lot of different shows. There is kind of a similar, there's a similar tone and things that runs through them, but they are very, very different. And you just kind of know that no matter what one you're listening to, it's going to kind of like be of a certain standard, and it doesn't really matter what it's about. Just because it's part of this thing, it's going to have certain qualities.
Right. So it's like, I'm not saying that we're all going to be like kumbaya channels or anything like that, but I do feel like, if there is ever an opportunity to cite your sources, you should cite your sources. Like, I cite my sources.
It's like
I
the
always cite my sources.
creator creed, but
Yeah,
level
like,
2.
I would love to be a part of some kind of group where everyone there, I don't have to check if you are. I just know you are. Like you're doing that, you know?
It's I don't know the logistics behind it, but I like the idea. I also like it because it would feel like it legitimizes
Right.
being a creator more.
Because it's not about, oh, I'm verified. It's not about I have 10,000 subscribers. It's like, no, dude, you can do this on day one.
But it's also, it's not just you can do, because it wouldn't, I would love it if there was a genuine training component towards
Right.
it, and like an evaluation or a review component where it's like, no, you have to actually earn it, and not everyone who goes for
through,
it gets it, because you actually have to do something. And that means there can be the recreational people who have no interest or need for that, and they can grow to 10 million strong or whatever without it. But it does mean that there is this thing that exists to add a certain amount of credibility. I don't know.
Credibility. I like that word. Credibility and legitimacy.
Yeah.
And like, that's the conference I would want to go to, because it's like, let's talk about, it's when you're not trying to, when your certification is not about how do we get the most clicks, it has to go to how do we make something that only we can, like it has to go to the creativity, because otherwise what is it, like it has to go to the creator and why we're even doing this in the first place. That's what I'm more interested in. I would not know that thing about aviation if you had not sat here and told me about it. Like, I would want to go to that. I don't want to know like how much someone is spending on their thumbnails to get created. Like, who cares?
Yeah, I can't do anything about that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting, I mean, there's no solution. So like it can start, and, very aware of the many potential ways that something like that could be done poorly, but just the idea of that, I think, like, honestly, just the idea, putting that idea out there is probably a good thing to think of. Like, yeah, okay, if this did exist, would I be operating in a way that I would get the seal? It's probably cool if you're somebody who cares about that.
I love this idea.
There you go.
I wish I could do it.
Dug the little nugget out of there. It also, you mentioned aviation, like going back to that, because that's what is on my mind so much lately. There's a very common phrase I've learned about when it comes to the laws and the rules, and it's that all of the rules are written in blood, which sounds very gory, but that's because
every rule is there because they learned it the hard way.
Literally because someone died or got really badly injured or something for it. And the thing that has shocked me about aviation is how much it does lean towards, or at least general aviation leans towards, personal freedom. And like you have to get your certificate, your training, you have to know all this stuff. And once you do that, you're the person in charge, which means you're fully responsible, but it means like, yeah, you're the one in charge. Like,
yeah. Right.
If you're in a giant, super busy airspace and air traffic control like clears you through it, yes, they should be monitoring, but they have to monitor all this other stuff that's happening. So it's up to you to monitor. If something happens, it's your fault that it didn't. And the thing that's interesting, the thing I was telling you was that has been the case. This thing started out, there's no rules, regulations, bad things happen, and out of necessity, rules and regulations get added. In the modern world, because there are so many people putting things on social media, it's the first time that this discussion's really popped up of almost like preventative rules, like rules not written in blood, because somebody could do something like this, or this could lead to something over here, like the guy who intentionally crashed his plane earlier this year to make a viral video.
Right.
He did lose his license, but now it's like, is this a thing we have to think of people doing? So I think the reason that this reminded me of that is there's the Wild West of the internet. There was the Wild West of aviation. If you want to just like toot around on a little like personal paramotor thing or whatever in like the countryside somewhere, there's very little that you need to be able to do that. If you want to be a commercial 747 pilot, there's a heck of a lot more you need to be able to do that. And all of that exists for specific reasons. And this is almost the same, where it's like there's this Wild West. If you just want to go put stuff out there and have fun with it,
cool.
that's 1,000% legitimate. If you want to sort of, if you just want to take it to a certain level, or demonstrate a certain level of that credibility and that legitimacy, then here's a way
responsibility.
To do that. And the response, like, it's, I guess that's what it is. It would be a regulation that comes from learning about the impact of these things, and then being willing to accept the responsibility that comes with it. Understanding that when you say something, it has an impact.
Yes.
And
being aware of that and caring about that.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you can solve it or prevent everything, but just the awareness, I guess.
Right.
The awareness of the impact of everything, regardless of all, one view is one impact. So, like.
Right. And of course, like, I'm not saying that we don't want to do well. It's like, of course we all want to grow, but the idea is like.
Well, at what cost? Like,
yeah. Well, I just feel like, isn't it weird how we're just all running on the internet unchecked? Like, I'm not trying to say like limiting free speech.
I love the Wild West part of the internet, but I think that I think that there's room for both.
I feel like there should be some kind of orientation for you to start creating on the internet, let alone being on the internet.
Well, so that's instead of waiting till you're 18 to go on the internet, like, I don't know, getting a license, or like getting a permit to go online or something when you're 13. I don't know, whatever it is. Like,
how do you explain to somebody that what they're seeing may not be real? And like, right. Why would you even make something that isn't real, knowing that people are going to think it is?
Right.
And that's the thing that I'm talking about, is that, like, you have that responsibility. And it, like, I would hope that people are just aware of that. And if you know that this is so obviously going to be a prank, and you're going to make it very clear because it's for entertainment purposes or whatever, cool. But, like, it's different when you are, like all those horror stories of where I'm going to make my son cry on camera.
Right.
Like, it's that. Like, I don't want to be in the same boat as you, dude. Like, I'm not cool with that. The integrity is not there, bro.
The integrity bro boat.
Anyway, I don't know if this is where we thought we were going to end up. But
I had no expectations, so that meant if I can clone ourselves, I would totally have us work on this new thing, this seal. It would be a great thing to put out there.
The Share Spark seal.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that would come to be, but I think just the idea of that, I think, is important. It doesn't even have to necessarily exist, but the idea of the hypothetical. If this were a thing, I'm somebody who would care about that. If this were a thing, am I operating in a way that would be in line with that? I think that's important.
Yeah.
At least for now, because nothing exists.
Well, Tom.
Is it time to clear the table?
I think it is.
All right.
Well, if you're watching this,
hi,
or listening, let us know what you thought of this new format. It's so weird. What did you think of this? Like, just not live, just pre-recorded. We're just talking to each other.
It's not better or worse. It's just different. Yeah. What took me longer than I wanted to was to ease into the conversation and not the host, because I can't get away from like feeling like hosting a thing and a stream, which is fine because you're doing that. You should be kind of hosting a thing, but when that's not there and it's just us talking, like, I would rather have a conversation, because that's where the interesting stuff is going to come from. And I think it took me a good 15-20 minutes before I feel like I kind of got slipped into that.
It's okay.
I tried.
I thought you did fine.
Great.
Yeah.
I got the seal.
All right.
Alrighty. Well, I hope you have a safe, happy, healthy, fun till we see you next time. And thanks for listening.
Bye. What is our outro song? Oh, let me just play it.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, couples table.
You can hear the mouse click.
Okay, here we go.